Now, I have parents ask me all the time, how do I get my kids not to melt down? How do I stop the tantrums? The fact is that before age 5 or 6, our kids have very little control over processing strong emotions. So episodes of heavy sobbing, ear-piercing screams, and that limp noodle syndrome can be frequent and intense. If you've ever heard yourself saying things like, stop crying, or there's no reason to get upset, it's not that big of a deal, then you have probably been overwhelmed by the intensity of your child's emotions. The problem is that in order to build their skills, kids need to experience our reactions to their feeling state as non-threatening. So my advice to you is don't stop the tantrum. Let your child come unglued. The more they do that, the better off they will be. Now, being conscious doesn't mean being permissive, being disengaged, or being unaffected by your child's emotional collapse. Only that you remain consciously in control of your own emotions as you allow your child to feel his or her feelings. You'll still set limits to help your child cope. Sometimes you'll monitor the meltdown, providing boundaries or alternatives, but you won't fall into the trap of judging or dismissing the emotion because they make you feel uncomfortable or because you feel bad for your child. The biggest rebuttal I hear to letting kids have their emotional expression is, well, if I let them act this way, won't they always act this way? It might be easy to think that it's that simple, but the development of the brain relies on a depth of feeling. We have to be aware and involved in our emotional world. The idea that behavior can be managed without understanding the full scope of our emotions is just a lie that's been sold to parents in order to sell them on the idea that kids need to be trained. Today, I want to share with you some surprising benefits of letting your child have that tantrum and come unglued. Because the truth is that letting your kids come undone means that with your unconditional acceptance of their feelings, they will eventually learn to put themselves back together. The first benefit of letting your kids come unglued is that feeling our feelings makes them less intense. Learning to regulate our emotions is preceded by being allowed to feel our experience and having that experience validated by others. To feel like we are connected, to feel like somebody understands is what we need in order to be able to move through our emotions to the next step of being able to change our actions. When our emotions are validated, they become less scary. Next, expressing our emotions within a familiar safety net builds relationship, which influences behavior. My kid has been known to scream, hit, punch, kick, demand, and threaten me with the Worst Mom in the World award, and still, she refuses to act like a lunatic outside of the home. If you ask her teachers or aunts or grandparents, she is kind, compassionate, motivated, and a friend to all. She gets that label, no trouble at all. I believe this is because I have made our home and my presence her safety net. The bond of trust that has been built through the unconditional acceptance of her feelings has allowed my advice, my suggestions, and requests to have real influence, to really reach her. And as she's grown, she's been able to adopt the different tools for managing her anger and resolving conflict that I've offered and modeled. And she's taken those tools outside of our home, where she's smart enough to know that other people won't necessarily be so supportive of her strong emotions. She's not incapacitated by my attention to her emotions. She's actually empowered because now she has the tools to manage her anger and the knowledge that at least one other person somewhere is on her side. The next benefit is that experiencing the full intensity of our feelings shapes the architecture of our brain. Repeatedly becoming intimately involved with our emotional experience in the presence of a loving caregiver builds resilience. It grows the brain in the right way, building connections to that upper level thinking and processing. Young children under 5 or 6 tantrum often because their brains aren't fully wired up for efficient processing. So they get easily overwhelmed and can experience a system-wide meltdown. It's a processing error, not a character flaw. This gives you the chance to shape the structure of their brain as you allow your children to safely express themselves. And in doing so, you provide them with 2 things that every child needs to develop in the most optimal way. 1, the right conditions. When you remain calm, you allow the brain to reset and reorganize. You stimulate the area that you're trying to grow, that area that houses self-regulation. Each time that happens, the brain strengthens. And 2, modeling of coping skills. Each time you offer your child a sensory connection, a hug, a toy to relieve the tension, a playful invitation, or a change in environment, something to soothe his emotional state, he's exposed to a new tool for coping which he can eventually access on his own. Next, expressing those feelings gives kids the emotional vocabulary to one day verbalize their feelings on their own. When you stay close to an upset child and empathize without immediately redirecting their behavior with logic, you give voice to their experience. You give words to their feelings, which they then internalize and make part of their story. So which story do you want your kids to internalize? The one that tells them, "Stop it, that's not nice." Or, "You're being silly, there's no reason to cry." Or, "You had a turn on my lap already, now be considerate, don't make your brother cry." Or, "You're feeling angry that the game is over because you love to play it." Or, "You seem sad that it's time to leave because you don't want to go." Or, "You're upset because you're feeling jealous that your brother's on my lap and you can't be up here too." The latter tells them about their feelings instead of telling them what you think of their behavior. When they know what they feel, they can then change their behavior on their own. And finally, letting kids come undone makes them naturally more reflective. When kids have the time to feel their feelings without evaluation or shame, they're more inclined to move to a reflective state on their own. When we criticize or try to rush them into shifting their behavior, they get stuck in a place of fear, unable to reflect, consider, or change course because they're so afraid of more disapproval. But kids, when allowed to fully feel and process their feelings, they come out of that emotional whirlwind willing and able to share what led them there. This is the kind of self-reflection that leads to accountability as kids come up with their own ways for resolving conflict and making amends. I think most kids grow up being unintentionally worn down by traditional unconscious discipline. Discipline that uses shame, blame, judgment, fear, and guilt to shape behavior also shapes the person behaving, but not in a way that optimizes their skills, in a way that actually diminishes their capacity for empathy and self-regulation, two core life skills. But every time your child is tapped into his own emotions, learning to notice them, recognizing the sensations that come with them, the better your child will be at cutting off that stress response and staying in conscious control of his or her thoughts and actions. Feeling our feelings is how we understand and change our behavior. Okay, that was my teachable moment for you. Now, what about you? Is it hard for you to let your child express strong emotions like anger or upset through a tantrum without trying to intervene? What is the challenge here for you, and what benefit do you see having the most impact for your child if you could just back off a tiny bit? Share your story in the comments, because when you do, you never know, but you just might inspire someone else towards making the changes that they were looking for. Now, did you like this video? Because if you did, I would be thrilled if you would share it with a friend or on your favorite social media site, because when you share the love spreads. And if you want more tips and tools like this, be sure you are subscribed to my weekly updates. Get on over to teachthroughlove.com and enter your email, or you can subscribe right here to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching, sharing, and liking. Until next time, please remember, it's about consciousness, not perfection.